The Nintendo Switch 2 is likely to be announced in just a few months. And ever since our last video, we had a number of new leaks which now give us pretty much the full picture of everything to expect in terms of the Nintendo Switch 2. And it all boils down to 5 main changes. The first of which is said to be redesigned Joy-Cons, which according to various reports will be larger, have an extra remappable button on the back, and then another extra button on the front of the right Joy-Con only, right below the home button. There's also said to be a new, sturdier mounting mechanism that would use electromagnetic suction in order to attach the Joy-Cons, with the SL and SR buttons now being made out of metal. So definitely a lot of changes coming to the Joy-Cons, which I'm personally really looking forward to. For me, the larger sizes would probably be the biggest change and the most important one, as I always found the current Joy-Cons to be quite tiny and just not very comfortable to use when detached. Of course, that remappable button on the back sounds like a great addition too. I absolutely love having this on my DualSense Edge controller, so happy to see this come to the Switch as well. As for that button below the home button, I'm not really sure what it could be for. Maybe a settings button of some sort. Now, all of these changes do mean that the old version of Joy-Cons will not be compatible with the new Switch, at least not in handheld mode. They would still work via Bluetooth, by the way, so if you've got a bunch of them around, you'll still be able to use them with the Switch 2 and then play party games with your friends. And speaking of this, Nintendo just launched a brand new accessory for the current Switch that lets you charge your Joy-Cons outside of the console. It's strange for Nintendo to release this accessory more than 7 years after the Switch's launch and just months before the Switch 2 is expected. Like, it's even odder given that many third-party manufacturers have been selling similar products for years. This accessory likely targets the Switch 2 considering its mid-October release, which will actually be very close to the Switch 2's unveiling. So this move allows Nintendo to market their accessory to Switch 2 buyers that are seeking a cost-effective couch co-op option, as our current Joy-Cons plus this accessory will likely be cheaper than buying a couple of the second-gen Joy-Cons. Now, the second big change coming to the Switch 2 will be in terms of its display. More specifically, the Switch 2 is getting a new display that is unfortunately going to be an LCD panel rather than an OLED. Yeah, we've had multiple reports on this, all claiming the exact same thing. The good news, however, is that the Switch 2 will be using a larger 8-inch panel that would also be high resolution at 1080p as opposed to the current 7-inch 720p panel of the Switch OLED. Of course, that 1080p resolution is likely there in order to make the pixel density remain roughly the same and then keep the display from becoming too pixelated given the increase in size. In fact, the PPI is actually going up from 209 pixels per inch to 275, which is actually a fairly decent increase. Like, don't get me wrong, this is definitely not Retina quality, but it will be a noticeable bump for sure. The original Switch, which still had a 720p display, but a smaller 6.2-inch size as opposed to the 7-inch of the OLED, it did have a higher PPI of 236 as opposed to 209. And I could definitely tell the difference, with the original Switch definitely being sharper in the main menu especially. But now the Switch 2 will be quite a bit sharper than both the original Switch and the Switch OLED. And while yes, this still won't match the PPI on a smartphone, like the Honor Magic V2, which offers a very similarly sized screen, but at a much higher 402 PPI, I still feel like for a handheld console, 275 will be very good, as number one, you'll be holding it at a far greater distance compared to a smartphone, and number two, you'll be running far more intensive games on it. So the battery life will also be very important here. So by keeping the display resolution at just 1080p, the Switch 2 will be able to last for far longer than if it had a 2K or a 3K resolution display. Now, the third big change coming to the Switch 2 will be its performance, which means that you may be able to play games like our sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder gives you commands of over 2,500 planes, tanks, ships, and helicopters of 10 major nations, from the 1920s biplanes to modern fighter jets. Every vehicle has been authentically recreated with realistic graphics and sound effects to offer an immersive experience for their 70 million players. My favorite feature is the varying levels of simulation you can choose from. To have an arcadey dogfight or a realistic tank battle that utilizes warfare tactics to get the edge on your opponent. Advanced hitboxes can also blow up their engine with one precise shot. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox right now by using the link below. And newcomers and those who haven't played in 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack for a limited time only, including the exclusive Eagle of Valor Vehicle Decorator, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account access. Now, back to the Switch 2's performance, the current Switch, that came out back in 2017, even then, it had a very weak NVIDIA Tegra X1 chip from 2015. Like, a modern smartphone today is more powerful than the Switch, with the iPhone 15 Pro being able to play games like the GTA Definitive Edition, Horizon Chase 2, and more at higher settings and higher frame rates than the Switch. For example, in Horizon Chase 2, as well as Alien Isolation, the iPhone 15 Pro is able to run them at 60 FPS as opposed to 30 on the Switch. Additionally, the iPhone 15 Pro is also capable of running modern AAA titles, like Resident Evil Village, Assassin's Creed Mirage, none of which are playable on the Switch. Luckily, this will be changing with the Switch 2, which is said to be far more powerful than the Switch 1. As some of you following the channel might know already, the rumors have been pointing towards the new NVIDIA Tegra T239 chip, combined with as much as 12GB of RAM and 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage, giving it roughly 4 teraflops of FP32 float compute power, so matching the Xbox Series S's performance and coming very close to the PS4 Pro's 4.19 teraflops of power. Of course, T-flops aren't always a clear indicator of overall performance, especially since we are also said to be getting DLSS support, something that the PS4 Pro and the Xbox Series S, of course, do not have. Now, compared to the original Switch's 0.15 T-flops of performance in handheld mode and 0.39 in docked, the Switch 2 will for sure be a massive step up in terms of its performance, with 4K now finally being an option when docked, thanks to DLSS. Now, if you are a bit worried about its battery life, according to leaker Moore's Law is Dead, in handheld, the Switch 2 will only run at 5 watts, with its handheld performance being considerably worse than the Steam Deck's. A 90 frames per second game on the Steam Deck would run at 60 on the Switch 2, and the 60 FPS game on the Steam Deck would then run at 40 on the Switch 2 with VRR enabled. Which makes me think that while the Switch 2 will have a VRR capable display, likely, this may not be able to go above 60 Hz, or at least it is very unlikely considering that most games will probably cap out at 60 frames per second. And I think what's really interesting from Moore's Law's report is that the Switch 2 will no longer have a built-in fan, probably to extend its battery life when in handheld mode as much as possible. However, the dock will have a built-in fan, and it will be able to boost the Switch 2's power draw from 5 watts up to a range of 15 to 30 in order to achieve those 4K resolutions. And personally, I think that's a brilliant move, as in a handheld, you'll still be able to get that amazing battery life that the Switch is known for. 6 hours on average is what I was getting with my Switch, as opposed to 4 hours on average for the Steam Deck and 2 to 3 hours for the Ally, which is what I've seen other users getting on average. Of course, this does depend on the games you play, and then in docked mode, you'll be able to get even greater performance than on the Steam Deck, given the literal double of TDP from 30 as opposed to 15. So yeah, pretty awesome performance on the Switch 2 is expected here. And of course, with all that extra performance, it is pretty much a no-brainer that we'll get to see some AAA titles make their way onto the Switch 2. Like, we've already had hints at Activision Blizzard being interested in developing some titles for the Switch 2. Personally, I would for sure expect to see Call of Duty come to the Switch 2, and possibly even Game Pass as well. And same goes for Assassin's Creed Shadows and plenty of other AAA titles that are popular right now. In addition to this, backwards compatibility with Switch 1 titles will also be supported, so you'll be able to run your existing games at higher settings, so likely a 4K resolution, and at a 60 frames per second target. And yes, this does include physical games as well. Ray tracing is also said to be supported in some games, according to Moore's Law is Dead, so the Switch 2 will be a massive upgrade from the Switch 1 in terms of the number of games, as well as the quality/performance of games that you'll be able to play here. And finally, the Switch 2 will also have a redesigned UI, which is also kind of expected given that Nintendo always updates their UI with new consoles. A new leak allegedly shows the UI but it looks too similar to the PS5's, and this has raised quite a few suspicions in the community. Even if this leak is fake, likely fake, a new UI is expected, and hopefully it will allow wallpaper changes unlike the current Switch UI. Now, when it comes to the Switch 2's release date, this has recently been pushed from late 2024 to early 2025. Nintendo has already stated that the announcement for the Switch 2 will be before their financial year ends in March of 2025, so personally, I would expect either a February or a March 2025 announcement. As for the price, we don't really know anything for sure. But given everything that we've seen, I'm pretty certain that the Switch 2 will be quite a bit more expensive than the Switch 1, which I still expect Nintendo to still be selling even after the Switch 2's launch. Also, make sure to check out our sponsor, War Thunder, available for free on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Simply sign up by using the link below for some exclusive goodies, including multiple premium vehicles and an exclusive vehicle decorator. Also, to celebrate the Olympics in Paris, we've released a special edition Olympic Odyssey wallpapers pack in collaboration with our designer, Wolrod. Olympic Odyssey features 10 8K wallpapers of the most iconic Olympic sports. And since they're 8K, you can use them on your smartphone, tablet, and desktop. Get Olympic Odyssey on our Wallpapers app or Wallpapers website store, where we are also running a 50% discount by using the links below. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the Switch 2, and feel free to check out our Discord, the Discord linked down below, and continue the conversation on there. I'm Daniel, this is ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.